Welcome back to the Shared Practices podcast. And today we have a very exciting episode of Practice Underwater. We have our guest today, real doctor, fake name is Bob. And so, Bob, we're going to go ahead and just jump right in. Bob, welcome to the Shared Practices podcast.
Thank you, George. It's great to be here.
So maybe let us know a little bit about your journey. So maybe, introduce yourself to our audience, allow our audience to just get to know you, Bob.
Sure. So, fake name Bob. I've been a practice owner for about 11 years now. I started out with a solo practice, and I have, over time, using some of the ideas and principles of shared practices, grown it to a mega group. And it's been kind of a wild ride as far as that goes, but it's been something that has been really rewarding and given me what I actually wanted, which was freedom from being clinical all the time and building a leadership team that can handle running the practice without me having to be that bottleneck.
That's awesome. And, maybe Bob, if you could take a step back and talk through, you've been our dentist for a longer period of time than our audience typically. So like maybe walk me through your whole career just at a high level. Like what did you do when you got out of school? How'd you get into ownership? How long have you been owning your mega group? Just kind of like help me
Sure.
understand some of those details.
Yeah, so after dental school, I had the Air Force scholarship during dental school. So I did 3 years in the Air Force, and then I came back to my hometown and I practiced as an associate. And so that was for 10 years. So 3.5 years in the Air Force and then 10 years associate.
Got it. 10 years as an associate.
Yes.
So then you opened up your practice. Walk me through, how'd you get into your big office and how did it start and all of that?
So I decided to go out on my own back in 2015. I found a space in an office park, built it out, and put in 6 operatories and started as a solo practice, and probably had maybe 800 patients at the time. And I knew I wanted to really create something much larger than that. And that was one of the main reasons for going out on my own. And so I was just looking around for different avenues, pathways, expertise as to how to get there. And so when I came across shared practices, it was around the COVID time.
Yeah, so maybe explain to me. So your first 5 years in practice, where was your practice at by the time you found shared practices?
Yeah, so the practice was at me. I had already brought in an associate. So I had an associate about 3 days a week at that point. And I had started to build some leaders, and I had an office manager. I had a clinical leader and a hygiene leader. And basically just was growing at a rate of about 20% per year. So was doing fairly well, but really wanted to take it to the next level.
And what was your collections around that time, around 2020?
Around 2020, they were at about 2 million.
So it's decent sized practice. And it seems like, you started the office 5 years prior. So, how did you get all those patients in?
We're probably averaging about 25 new patients a month, 25 to 30 new patients a month, and basically just accumulating those, good retention of the patients that we did have, and then offering a broad array of clinical services that allowed us to maximize the amount of treatment that we did on the patients that we did have.
Got it. And Bob, maybe if you could, while we're on the topic, help me understand your clinical box. So, what is sort of the array of procedures you like to perform?
So I like doing root canals, molar root canals, extractions, including wisdom teeth, impactions, bone graft membrane, implants, and yeah, those are my favorite procedures to do outside of everyday bread and butter dentistry.
So, now walk me through, 2020, you found shared practices. What changed?
So the big thing that changed is when I was listening to your philosophy, you kind of gave permission to make the profit and loss statement not look pretty all the time. And so I'm like, I could fast track this if I was to implement some of these philosophies. Retain open fill, hire the hygienist, before I was sure I needed one, and really jump my new patients from 25 to 50 to 70. And that's exactly what happened. Everyone got a little bit of a bump after COVID, but the bump we got went from, say, 25 new patients a month to like 80, 90 new patients a month. And that was partly because of the COVID bump, but also partly because everyone else, it's funny how this all came together, but so I'm absorbing these philosophies. Everyone else seems to be scared. They're shutting down their marketing. They're letting their staff off. And so I'm hiring the staff that they're letting off, and I'm doubling down on the marketing. And that seemed to be really what kickstarted the real growth for the practice.
So maybe, like allow me just a minute or two to kind of, because like I've taught our philosophy many times in seminars and all of that. And I distinctly remember there was this one instance where there was this gentleman who, like not our typical listener, has been out for a longer period of time and was like arguing with me about how reckless it is for kind of what I'm suggesting with like, retain open fill, open up your hygiene days and take on another most expensive employee in your hygienist and add that capacity to the schedule and, maybe allow your profit and loss to have higher staff comp for a period of time. And so maybe you just kind of walk me through because I think, maybe on the younger side, if somebody's like in dental school listening to this, they might not really understand like how against the industry dogma that really is. So, can you just kind of walk me through like what was your mindset before the philosophy and I guess how did that change?
Yeah, the philosophy from all the consultants and how we've been trained was that profit and loss statement. We lived and died by that. And the accountants would basically reinforce that as well. And so to deviate from that, to make that out of whack for a period of time, and I know you call that the ugly duckling stage, in the name of growth, and there's other benefits that come along with growth, such as a larger practice, more equity, different things like that. The idea is that you will get all of that back at some point in time, but to get from where you are now to, which for me was, I was just dipping my toe into a group practice and I wanted to go to mega group. And so doing that and hiring those staff, like during the COVID timeframe, I think we hired over 10 different people. And some I just knew they were good people and they had a place at the practice. It's just we had to figure out how we are going to utilize them and maximize them. The hygienists are a no-brainer, the assistants were a no-brainer, but also building other infrastructure as well, such as leaders and office managers and things like that.
So now maybe walk me through like where's your practice today?
So the practice today is a mega group practice, but it's a little bit different than a single location. So I am in an office park, as I mentioned. I grew my 6 operatory practice to a 12 operatory practice. And that was during that COVID time. I went from 6 to 7, 7 to 9, 9 to 12 over the course of a couple years. And fortunately, I had the space to do that. But eventually, I ran out of space to do that. So you also have philosophies out there that you talk about, ready to grow practices. And my vision all along was to grow a mega group practice, but I also was open to the idea that maybe I would purchase some satellite practices as well, and that would allow me to grow even faster. And really the thing that made up my mind for this is I had found a location in the office park to build out yet another 5 operatories. I went through the engineering, I went through all of that. I got the bill for like what that would be. And then a practice came for sale in the same office park, which is basically right next to me. And it was about half the price. It came with 2,000 patients. It came with a full staff, and it was like a no brainer. And so it fit your definition of what a ready to grow practice was. Like I say, I had 2,000 patients. I had the overdue hygiene. I had a very good staff in place. And the thing that made it really low risk is the fact that it was only a few feet from my practice, meaning I had the infrastructure already built out. I had accounting, HR, marketing. We had a call center built out by that time, and it would be very easy to support that practice. And that took place about a year ago. So what we're looking at right now, 17 operatories between the two practices, and about 8 million in revenue, 7.75, and an EBITDA of about 600,000. That is what I'd like to talk to you about. I feel like I'm at a point now where I would like to focus more on the profitability. And to just build off of what you said, as far as going through that period of time where things aren't perfect, I would say I embraced your philosophy, but I also used it kind of a little off label as well. And what I mean by that is I didn't go for 6 months. I went for a year. I went for like 18 months. I went for 2 years. This growth was very enticing. And so it allowed me to grow very quickly. So I'm now at a point where the balance sheet is looking good. It could look better, but it's looking good. And I have to decide at this point whether we're going to look for another practice, whether we're going to stay at this landing place here and just become better at the profitable, sustainable, and simple.
So I feel like we got the story now. Thank you, Bob, for kind of walking us through that. And I think the thing that I really want to touch on now is I want to understand how the two practices work together. So do they have the same name, different names?
So they have the same name. We did that after about 6 months into the transition. We kept the original name, and we just converted over to a new software because they were on different softwares. So we are on one platform now. And so, yes, gradually we are creating those to be the same practice. And one is just in a separate, just has a different address.
So maybe help me understand operationally speaking, like how do you funnel patients back and forth, staff? How do you run them as one team? Like maybe just help me understand, like, it's unconventional. So if I could just kind of like better understand the operation, that'd be great.
Yeah, sure. So in the beginning, we kept them very separate. The staff over there was the staff over there. I augmented the staff with some of my people. So I added some people, but we had pretty much a team over there and a team at the flagship practice. And like I said, we were running separate softwares. The patient base was pretty separate. If we would refer to the flagship practice on occasion for some specialty care and things like that we weren't quite equipped to do in the new office. So, but now we're at the point where it's becoming more integrated. We still have a staff team over there and a staff team over in the flagship practice. And patients still have a home, whether it be in the new practice or whether it be in the flagship practice. So yeah, it's not fully integrated, but it seems to be working at this point.
Going from 2 million to 8 million in a matter of, few years is pretty impressive. So I think like, we got to kind of at least give you a small tip of the cap before we even get into anything constructive. So I just want to say, Bob, like, what you've done is not normal. And I think that it's quite impressive. So, just congratulations on what you've done to date.
Oh, thank you.
So now, if I'm hearing you correctly, is your profitability like your chief complaint, like bar none, that's the most important thing? Or do you have kind of other areas that you think are also, worth discussing and mentioning as well?
So profitability is definitely up there. Like I said, our EBITDA is maybe around like 8 or 9%. I'd like to double that. I'd like to see it higher than that. And the other thing I think we really could do a lot better, and I haven't done myself any favors by setting up this two practices right next to each other, is operations and systems. I feel like we could use our people more efficiently with clearer, simpler systems. And I feel like we have great people. I think that's our competitive advantage to a lot of other practices. And we just need to give them the checklist, give them the metrics and the marching orders to get through the day most efficiently.
Yeah. So maybe help me understand, is there a difference between the two offices, like in terms of the performance or the team quality? Like, normally I know it's like yours is so weird because they're like in the same office park, but like typically speaking, when you have a flagship practice that's doing like six something million and then you have another office doing a little over a million, like the vibe inside of the $6 million practice is going to be totally different than, in the smaller office. Do you guys have that?
Yes, that's definitely the case. So the patient demographics different in the newer practice. The employee demographic is also somewhat different in the newer practice. The procedure mix is different, but I feel like we've done a great job of merging the two different cultures. And the irony is, and something I didn't expect in the beginning, was that I knew I could infuse a lot of great ideas into the new practice, but I also learned a lot from the new practice. And typically, what I learned is how well and simple a small practice can run. And it's just like, wow, we all look at that and we're like, it's we want more of that. And so that's kind of where I'm coming from. It's like I've been able to build this big practice, but a lot of those aspects of that newer, smaller practice are very simple, straightforward, predictable, profitable, all of those things. And yeah, I think we could learn something from that as well.
Yeah, so if I understand you correctly, you have now let me kind of understand. You have one full-time doctor and two hygienists in that smaller practice.
3 hygienists, 1 doctor.
So three hygienists and one doctor. And then
Yes.
in the larger practice, is that five doctors?
So at any given time, there's 3 doctors and 6 hygienists. But as far as number of full-time doctors, there's 4 of them. So there's 4 full-time doctors in the flagship practice, 1 full-time doctor in the new practice, and then we have a couple specialists that come in occasionally.
And so you are one of five dentists. So you have four dentists who work for you.
That's correct.
All right. So yeah, interesting situation. So all right. So the thing I want to poke into a little bit is the profitability piece. So I mean, you seem like you're rattling off your EBITDA kind of off the top of your head. I don't have a look at your profit and loss. So
Mm.
can you walk me through some of the areas of do you know your profit and loss well enough to know why we have the net sort of lack of profitability compared to where you'd like it to be? Or do you not kind of have that type of dictation over your profit and loss statement?
No, I have that.
Okay. So maybe walk me through your profit and loss at a high level. By the way, so like if you say the net, so you're saying like between the two offices, your margin is, 7 to 8% type thing. So is that including your pay?
No, my pay's already been paid for.
Okay. So your pay's already been paid for, and then there's 7 to 8% after that.
Yes, so that's profit after everything.
Okay. So is that also profit after bank debt?
It's not practice after bank
Okay,
debt.
so you are like very, very formally and correctly calculating EBITDA. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, so walk me through now, like, what's the EBITDA margin of do you have each profit and loss separate between the offices, or do you put them all together?
We have, unfortunately, they're together.
Okay. So that's interesting.
Yes,
So, like, your revenue is all one, you have 2 rents, you have, like, so you're essentially running it as one big office.
yes.
Okay. So just give me as much detail on your profit and loss as you can.
Okay. So if we look at it, the way I categorize my profit and loss is I have a marketing category. The goal is 2.5% of the budget. We're at 1.36 year to date. Facility,
So 1.36%?
yes. I also have as a goal of 2.5%. We're currently at 2.6% year to date.
Okay. So your staff comp must be massive is where I'm thinking we're going here.
Yeah, that's where we're going.
'Cause your marketing and facility expenses are tiny.
Lab, I have a goal of 4%. We're currently at 5%. Supplies, I have a goal of 6%. We're currently at 6.3%. Then I have a category called admin. It's kind of like a catch
Yep.
all. And so I have 6% admin goal, but it's actually at 7%. So, and then we have staff. And so my staff, the goal is 34%, and I am at 36%.
And staff is everyone except doctors.
That's correct.
All right, so where are the doctors?
Actually, I have one other category, and the one other category is a management category. And so the management category includes my accountant, marketing, HR, and that type. And so that is an additional 3%.
And is that the total expense or the goal?
That's both. And the reason I broke that out is because I wanted to see, I set up a separate call center and a separate support
Uh-huh.
center with the anticipation of purchasing future practices and having that support it.
Yeah.
I wanted to see what it was costing me to run that from a human resource standpoint. But for this purpose, you would probably just take that number and add it to the 36%, which would bring you up to
Yeah, so
38%.
your call center and everything, your admin, your accounting, your marketing team members, your call center, everything is 3%.
Correct.
That's not bad. That's good. Okay, let's keep going. So
Yeah.
give me the doctor comp.
Doctor comp, I have a goal of 24%, and I'm at 24.5%, including myself.
Yep. I'm gonna get out my calculator. And if anyone is wondering, like, my calculator, this is literally the calculator on my phone. So we're not doing anything other than napkin math on the numbers that you heard here on the podcast. So I am going to add up our percentages, and I am going to do it in a way that's going to try to be as apples to apples for our listeners. So you're at 58% before the doctors and the management team.
Okay.
Um, you add you add 3% for the management, that's 61.26, and then you add 24 and a half, and I'm at 85.76. So I have you at a 15% margin right now. So we're missing about 7 to 8%.
Yes.
So where is that?
Let's
Because
see. So,
according to this, we don't have a problem.
right, it puts me at what I would like to be at, which is about 15%
Yeah,
or
but that's
20%.
not what you're
Yeah.
saying it is.
Yeah.
Is there anything else missing?
No, those are all the categories. Those are the numbers year to date.
Where did you get the 7 to 8% from? Last year?
Yes.
So it's kind of funny. I mean, I'm looking at the situation and I'm not necessarily seeing anything that's broken. But I mean, yeah, the staff costs are high, right? For sure. But like your marketing is 1.36%, your facility's 2.6%. I mean, typically you have marketing at 5 to 8% and you have facility at 5 to 8%. So
Hmm.
you're essentially stealing from marketing and facility and giving it to the team. Like, that's not a bad thing. So,
And that's how I look at it.
yeah, so I guess, can we first confirm, like, because, are we missing anything?
No, that's everything.
So what's happening? Like, so like, and sorry, CFO here's like asking questions now. So like, you know, do you, what gave you the idea that you were at 7 to 8%?
Well, like I said, last year's numbers, came in at 78%. It looked like this year's numbers were going to come in below 10% based on.
What was your revenue last year?
So the numbers I gave you are up through November. November, the last day of
Okay,
November.
and what was your revenue last year?
Revenue last year was 6 million. There's only one practice last year.
Ah, interesting note. So there was only one practice last year, which means that the second office, because that was essentially what I was asking the question of, is
Yeah.
I was asking the question, which office is more profitable on a percentage basis? And I think it's somewhat
Yeah.
obvious it's the second practice, right? Like,
It's the second
the second
practice.
practice might have a 20% margin, for example. And
Right.
so I think that that is contributing positively. And I also think that you're diluting some of your fixed costs. But I just want to commend you real quick, on a few things. So I'm sure this isn't where you saw the conversation going, by the way, where I'm commending you on your profit and loss rather than us spending the time troubleshooting it. But 3% on management is very impressive. So, like, I just got to get us a number here for our audience, right? You said you were at 7 are you 745 this year, you said?
775.
775, yeah. I mean, you take 3% of that, that's 230 grand year to date that you've
Yes.
spent on that management cost with the call center and those support functions. That normally sinks people. So most people in your type of position, they overbuild that, and it's at like 9%, for example, and it sinks them because it's just too much. They don't need that much. So the fact that you were extremely disciplined at 3%, that is cool. So I think now the conversation that I want to have to kind of end the episode, for part one, and then we'll leak into part two, is this idea of growing or staying. So, why, what is appealing to you about the idea of pushing and growing and adding new locations?
Hearing you, verbalize what you just mentioned regarding last year versus this year, and the main difference being the profitability of that second practice, I was really able to capitalize on because I was able to dilute a lot of the expenses I have already built up. That I feel like could
Yeah.
continue, and and that's enticing. And the team did most of the work as far as this integration goes, and so I think that's a very doable situation.
Yeah.
So that's what's very enticing about actually looking for another ready to grow practice.
Yeah, and maybe help me understand, what's the argument and the counter, because you're not going to look at me like, I've I multi-practice is like my favorite business in dentistry. I love it. I think it's so
Hmm.
fun. It's extremely challenging. It's very challenging and it's a grind. Don't get me wrong. But
Yeah.
boy, do I love the game of multiple locations. And so, like, you're kind of talking to the wrong person if you think that the direction I'm going to take this conversation is, let's simplify and optimize with two, and not really add more, because there's something that happens between a profitable group and a mega group, where it's like, to get to the profitable group you need an empowered office manager, you need a lead hygienist. Typically people sometimes have a dental assistant who's the lead or not. But then to go from the profitable group to the mega group, you already kind of have that infrastructure in place. And I feel like I kind of have the same thought here for you on a larger scale. It's because you have two locations, because you have the central team now, not like a huge central team, but you got a budding central team. You have a team led approach. Like you've kind of put in the work to get to three or four, but you just don't have three or four. So I would say that one or two more practices added to this just seems to make the whole picture better, and then allows you to kind of take that 36% staff cost and continue to dilute it. So that that's kind of my thoughts on this. But like, again, if you're talking about the simple, like optimize, don't add more locations, I don't love that perspective, candidly, because you've already done so much of the lift to get to this point that tacking on one or two more practices to what you have is a natural thing because you've already done that infrastructural work. So that's where I'm looking at this situation and saying, I don't see a reason to slow down. I see a reason to just, allow yourself to dilute more of your costs.
Yes, and that was always the vision. I think I thought maybe taking a rest, so to speak, just because it's been a 10-year grind of building this. And as we talked about, I built the infrastructure before I needed it. So that has consequences in itself. It plays out very well when I purchase another practice and everything's already all set, ready to go. But during the building process, you talk about the call center, it wasn't always like that. The call center was like, that was a big expense in the beginning. And as we got bigger and we grew into it, it made more sense. And so yeah, I think that it makes perfect sense from a business standpoint to continue the road that we're on and that would be acquiring another ready to grow practice.
I think that, so from my perspective, I feel pretty clear. Do you have any, so like, I think that what we're, and in part two, I'm going to double click on something you just said. The growth has been a grind. I don't know if I should take a break. Like all of that, like I'm going to start the next episode with that type of conversation, and then
Okay.
and then we can kind of go from there. So I guess, Bob, looking at the situation, kind of curious to hear some of your thoughts and takeaways so far in our conversation.
Yeah, it's been enlightening hearing you take a look at things, tell me, my balance sheet isn't as bad as what I thought it was. It's something that I have improved over the last year. Getting this new practice has really just like jump started profitability and everything else, but it also got me thinking about how easy and simple it is to keep things simple and make a profit as opposed to making things more and more complex.
Yeah.
And so this is where I have kind of gotten to this point where I'm making a decision as to, do I keep going down this or do I consolidate at this point and see how optimized I can make it profitable, simple, and sustainable?
Well, I'm going to kind of give the recap for our audience. I just blown away. I have your percentages here. And when when you listed, I'm sorry, I'm just gonna go on a little tangent. When you listed marketing at one point, you said your goal was 2.5%. I'm like, okay. And then you're like, our true expense is 1.3%.
Mm.
And then facility, our goal is 2.5%, and we're at 2.6%. I saw those two numbers, and the first reaction I had is, how is this 7 to 8%? Like, how could that possibly be? And yeah, I mean, I find it very interesting as we went through the exercise. And like, totally, there's places to cut. Like, you could absolutely get a point and a half off of your supply expenditures. Like, I think that is there for you. I think your administrative costs at 7% for a large group of this size, I think there's a percentage or two there. And then I think your staff, there's a percentage of two as well. Like, you definitely have room to optimize for profitability. But at the same time, look at how fast you've grown. Look at all that you've done, and I mean, after paying yourself as a dentist, you still have a good 14% of 7.75 million. So you have created for yourself quite a valuable asset, and so I think that, like, I almost think that being too hard on you isn't really the correct way to go. It's to commend you for the work that you've done, and also I'm quite flattered that we had a trajectory changing kind of impact on you, where you went our direction and you really supercharged your growth to get to where you are today. And so, this is really cool, and I want to kind of carry on this conversation to part two, where I want to talk through some things. So, in part two, when you come back, we're going to talk about, first of all, we're going to talk about the grind. And I really want to fixate on that because you said, like, I didn't find any compelling reasons not to add a location or two to the mix. But you said something very compelling, which is it's been a grind, like maybe a pause is good. And I actually that's something interesting to touch on. So I want to talk about that. And then I want to talk about, you also said something interesting, which is like, I want to grow and I don't want to add too much more complexity. So I would think the appropriate plan of growth is to grow into your infrastructure with no intention of overcomplicating it further. And I think those are kind of the two things that I think would be really worth diving into in part two. So for our audience, I really appreciate you guys listening to this episode. And Bob, I really appreciate you coming on the podcast. So we're going to see you next week on another episode of Practice Underwater. Thanks for this week, Bob.